Waiver. Our sign language interpreter is Yola Nzale. Tonight, we begin our bulletin on a sad note following the discovery of the bodies of 2 out of 3 men who were reported missing in Mlolongo in December last year. The bodies of Justus Musimi and Martin Mwao were positively identified by their family members at Nairobi Funeral Home a month after their mysterious disappearance. Meanwhile, Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja and DCI Director Mohamed Amin appeared in court where they denied holding the 3 in police custody. Gatete Njoroge reports on the events that have left 2 families mourning and another one still in search of their loved one.
Straight from a day-long court session, the family of Justus Musimi, in the company of lawyers led by Law Society of Kenya President Faith Odhiambo, headed to Nairobi Funeral Home. Their visit followed confirmation that Musimi's body had positively been identified over a month after it was found in Ruai area. His body was discovered on December 18, 2024, a day after he went missing in the company of his friend Martin Mwao.
We got a report yesterday that the body of Justus Mutumwa was found alongside the river in Nairobi River, and DCI and police, they have taken the DNA test for the fingerprint, and they have reported the matter at our rural area where the ID identifies himself that it is the body of Justus Mutumwa.
Hours after Musimi's body was discovered, Martin Mwao's remains were also found at the Nairobi Funeral Home. But it is the manner in which the 2 friends who left home together riding a motorcycle on a business trip met their death. Reports indicate that the late Musimi was booked as a victim of drowning, while Mwao was booked as a murder victim whose lifeless body was found in Molem. The bodies were also discovered on different dates. Musimi's body was found on December 18th, while Mwao's body was found on December 19th, 2024. The shocking revelation came on the day when Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja and DCI Director Mohamed Amin appeared in court. The 2 top security officials who were summoned to explain the whereabouts of the 3 missing men told Justice Chacha Mwita that the missing men were not in police custody and the matter was still under investigations.
We have none of the subject. I want to confirm before this court that we have none of them.
Under the circumstances, my lord, we can neither produce their bodies pursuant to the writ of habeas corpus, nor can we formally prefer any charges against them.
The lead detective in the case, Paul Washira, informed the court that the challenges with the investigations was lack of crucial evidence from witnesses and the need to seek court orders to probe the missing men communications and financial transactions. LSK President Faith Odhiambo has raised concerns over the discovery of bodies, which the top security command was not aware of, despite the seriousness of the case. The Independent Police Oversight Authority has also launched a probe into the murder incidents.
The fact that the Inspector General of Police and also the Director of the DCI can come to court and tell the court they have no idea, yet this was being done and fingerprints were taken, identified yesterday, it either means that they are not talking to each other or they do not have control of their different agencies within the National Police Service.
We have now sent our rapid response team to go to the mortuary and find out from more in terms of what has happened in this matter. The
fate of Karani Muema, who went missing on December 12th and who was a friend to the 2, is unknown, as he has never been traced.
The family now calling on police to investigate the matter and ensure they get answers. Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV, City Mortuary, Nairobi.
tragic end to the search of those family members. In the meantime, the President of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, has addressed the nation in the wake of the outbreak of war in the east of the country. Tshisekedi is vowing to reclaim territory seized by M23 rebels, while the rebels are vowing to march to the capital, Kinshasa. Seth Olale reports on the latest developments there.
In a televised address to the nation, DRC's President Felix Tshisekedi accused Rwanda of backing the M23 rebels and vowed to reclaim the city of Goma, seized by the rebels.
Une riposte vigoureuse et coordonnée contre ces terroristes. A vigorous coordinated response against these terrorists and their sponsors is underway. République démocratique du Congo, symbole. Our valiant armed forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo, symbols of courage and patriotism, are fully mobilized, ready to defend every inch of our territory. Et présider des réunions de crise avec une...
In a rejoinder, M23 rebel spokesman Corneille Nangaa declared that they will march on to Kinshasa unless Tshisekedi addresses their grievances. As M23 rebels tightened their grip on Goma, hundreds of foreign military mercenaries surrendered to the United Nations peacekeepers before crossing into Rwanda. As the fighting continues, the humanitarian crisis continues to worsen.
The airport in Goma, unfortunately, remains closed, which means that the flow of humanitarian cargo and rotation of humanitarian personnel have been suspended. Most of the roads that connect Goma to the rest of the country are also closed.
The UK and Germany are among donor countries that have threatened to withdraw aid to Rwanda in the wake of the M23 offensive, with UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy announcing that up to 5 billion shillings annual bilateral aid to Rwanda was under threat. Germany has reportedly cancelled aid talks with Kigali. Seth Olale, Citizen TV.
Since the most recent...
Related to that, an ugly diplomatic row is shaping up, pitting Rwanda against South Africa in a blame game of alleged respective roles in the current crisis in eastern Congo. South Africa, whose 13 soldiers were killed in Goma, is accusing Rwandan Defense Forces of fighting alongside M23, the rebels, while Rwanda is counter-accusing South Africa of supporting elements opposed to Rwanda. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa and Rwandan President Paul Kagame have in the last 24 hours engaged in a testy exchange of words, with the Rwandan president declaring Rwanda's readiness for any confrontation with South Africa. Emmanuel Toh reports.
Wednesday night's EAC Crisis Virtual Summit, chaired by President William Ruto, provided a platform.
He got rid of them and he decided to bring in SADC.
For the apparent angry venting by Rwandan President Paul Kagame, who broke away from diplomatic traditions to launch a scathing attack on his South African counterpart, Cyril Ramaphosa.
He's also there pretending to be playing a peacemaker role. And he has a force that has been fighting alongside FDLR and has been fighting the M23 on the instructions of Tshisekedi, because these are people who are not supposed to be in Congo.
The South African leader had earlier in a statement accused Rwanda of supporting the M23 rebels in their takeover of the city of Goma, where 13 South African soldiers were killed. But Kagame denies helping the M23 militia.
M23 are not Rwandans, please. These are Congolese, and one time he accepts it, then another time he says no, part of it is yes, and then the other part is from Rwanda, and these are He keeps on going. And how do we, leaders of our own countries, accept this to go on forever and just accept that we shall be manipulated by Tshisekedi or whoever is supporting him? And South Africa dares even issue threats about what is likely to happen after that and so on and so forth. Of course, we will see what threats they are talking about.
The visibly agitated Rwandan president later warned on his X platform that, quote, if South Africa prefers confrontation, Rwanda will deal with the matter in that context any day. Foreign nations have for the last 30 years featured prominently in wars in the Congo, with the first war starting in October 1996 and ending in May 1997 with the overthrow of the then Zaire President Mobutu Sese Seko. Following the 1994 genocide, Rwandan forces pursued ex-army and Hutu militia into eastern Congo. Rwanda would later become instrumental in the war that swept Laurent Kabila to Kinshasa and to power. The Second War in Congo broke out in 1998, drawing in Rwanda and Uganda on the rebel side, while Angola, Zimbabwe and Namibia sided with the Kinshasa government. The war, sparked by the reversal of alliances between Kinshasa and Kigali, saw Kabila order all foreign troops out of Congo, which saw some senior-ranking government officials of Rwandese origin kicked out of Kinshasa. Rwanda responded with a fresh invasion, propping up the divided Rally for Congolese Democracy (RCD) rebels. The Rwandan-backed rebel advance was stopped by the concerted forces of Angola, Namibia and Zimbabwe. Just over 20 years later, regional and foreign currents are at play yet again, suggesting the ugly prospect of another multi-fronted war in the Congo. And going by the rhetoric of the last 24 hours, Rwanda and South Africa have seemingly already picked their numbers. Emmanuel Tor, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Away from that, uncertainty still lingers on if and how HIV and AIDS organizations dependent on American funding will operate, with the USA freezing and then waiving the orders on American funds. The USA Secretary of State Marco Rubio issued a waiver for life-saving assistance amidst the freeze that has thrown health and humanitarian work around the world into a spin. Brenda Wanga reports.
This is an order creating and implementing the Department of Government.
Hours after the USA's stop work order froze all foreign assistance, including health programs supported through the PEPFAR program, and sparking fears of drawbacks in the gains made in the fight against HIV and AIDS, the same government has thrown millions of people across the globe some reprieve. The USA Secretary of State Marco Rubio, in a statement on the department's website, said that they had approved an additional waiver of the post for life-saving humanitarian assistance. That waiver now means that the organizations funded by the USA government will continue to get funds for core life-saving medicine, medical services, food, shelter, subsistence assistance, supplies, and reasonable administrative costs as necessary to deliver such assistance.
When do you think?
I don't know. I can't. It's being set up.
Your first trip for it.
Funding, however, remains suspended for abortion services, family planning, conferences, gender, diversity and inclusion, transgender surgeries, and non-life-saving assistance. The waiver is welcome news for patients like this 14-year-old young man living with HIV and whose ARV supply was threatened by the USA directive.
Hizo niko na stock nilipoa hadi April, lakini naza appeal.
He is one of 71,433 children aged between 1 to 14 years who are living with HIV and part of the 1.3 million Kenyans on ARV treatment who stand to suffer from the withdrawal of USA funding. The Kenyan government has pledged to ensure that those on antiretroviral treatment continue to receive the life-saving treatment as it seeks to raise funds towards this through supplementary budgets. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
The government's ambitious nationwide livestock vaccination campaign has officially kicked off. The program, launched by Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe in Laikipia County, aims to vaccinate at least 22 million cattle and 50 million goats for the next 3 years. However, the initiative has faced fierce resistance from some of the farmers, fueled by what the government says is misinformation about the vaccines. In response, the government has assured farmers of the vaccine's safety and effectiveness. Citizen TV's Ben Kirui has more.
One after another, hundreds of cows received the jab as the controversial nationwide livestock vaccination program officially kicked off in Laikipia County. The exercise, launched by Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe, proceeded despite fierce resistance from farmers and some political leaders, fueled by online conspiracy theories about the vaccines. Dismissing the skeptics, Kagwe assured farmers that the initiative is for their own benefit.
Kama vile tulikuwa nasema mambo ya COVID. Na mnajua hata wakati huo kuna watu walisema hii COVID hapana, hii chanjo la COVID hapana mzuri. Livestock owners, livestock breeders, to be reassured and to trust that we cannot go out of our way to tell them to use something that we don't believe in. Because what sort of leadership would we be? What sort of people would we be if we would tell people to use something that we have not checked, that we have not certified, that we are not happy with?
However, the CS reiterated that the program is entirely voluntary, emphasizing that no farmer will be forced to vaccinate their animals.
I believe it was a communication breakdown. It is not a refusal. The propaganda came out of lack of knowledge, ambao watu hawajui ni kitu gani wanasema.
Tungekuomba ya kwamba kwa sababu sisi tumekubali na ishara ya wananchi wamekubali kuduga ng'ombe zao shindano. Tafadhali tunakuomba, because of the livestock movement permit, sisi tunaweza kataza, lakini kuna wengine wanaweza kuigiza ng'ombe zao kwa nguvu hapa.
The government's aim is to vaccinate at least 22 million cattle and 50 million goats and sheep over 3 years, citing the importance of immunization in controlling foot and mouth disease in cattle and PPR, commonly known as a sheep and goat plague.
The investment the government is making to transform the livestock sector to a wealth-generating industry is viable because we have enough livestock. Every year, we slaughter 3 million cattle in Kenya.
Opposition to the program has been fueled by various conspiracy theories, including claims that Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates is financing the initiative and that the vaccines could alter livestock genetics, potentially leading to defective animals.
Siasa upande moja, fitina upande moja, ukweli upande moja. Ukweli ni kwamba chanjo liko hapa, na sababu gani tunasema wewe uchanje ng'ombe zako? Hii ni maisha yenu jameni. Ni maisha yenu, wajua serikali haina ng'ombe.
We must meet international standards for our livestock products so that we can be able to export our meat, our milk and other livestock products in many parts of the world, especially in the Middle East, where we have a big market. For us to meet the demands, the health demands from the international market, we must vaccinate our livestock.
In Laikipia County, the campaign targets 1.1 million livestock, including 300,000 cattle and 800,000 goats and sheep, as the government pushes forward with its efforts to protect the agricultural sector. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Former Migori County Governor Okoth Obado is set to defend himself over the charges of murder of slain Rongo University student Sharon Otieno. In the ruling delivered on Thursday, High Court Judge Cecilia Gidua indicated that the prosecution had made satisfactory submissions indicating that the former county chief, his personal assistant Michael Oyamo, and a former Migori County employee Caspar Lobiero had a case to answer regarding the murder of the student. Githua, however, indicated that there was insufficient evidence to place the three on their defense for the murder of Sharon's unborn child. 26-year-old Sharon Otieno was murdered in September 2018 and her body discovered at the Kodera Forest in Homa Bay County. The prosecution had lined up a total of 42 witnesses who testified in the trial. The case will be mentioned on 25th of February this year. To another story, the Ministry of Education has announced the disbursement of 14 billion shillings capitation with a promise to release an additional 15 billion shillings in the next few weeks. The disbursement has been welcomed by the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET, who had threatened to shut down schools if the government failed to release the money. The union has also faulted Teacher Service Commission over the ongoing promotion exercise of teachers and demanded the exercise be carried out on a pro rata basis. Mary Mwoki has more.
A few days since the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET, threatened to go on strike and shut down schools over school funding, the government has seemingly heeded their demands and released 14 billion shillings in capitation to secondary schools.
Yesterday we released 14.3 billion shillings for our secondary schools as Tranche 1. I can affirm that our schools are now able to adequately run.
Hoping that the minister will live to his word and the money will hit the account by the end of tomorrow.
Education PS Belio Kipsang issued a commitment that the government would release the remaining 15 billion in the next few weeks to cover capitation at both primary and secondary levels.
And we are working with our colleagues in the National Treasury to ensure that all the resources that we are to release to our secondary schools are released.
At the same time, KUPPET has taken an issue with the criteria used to allocate the promotion slots, terming it unfair and discriminatory. KUPPET has faulted the teachers' employer for distributing the slots equally across all counties and demanded the commission to fill the available slots on a pro rata basis.
We understand that now the slots are being shared equally. The county that has got the highest number of teachers must get the highest number of slots.
The union has also welcomed the High Court's decision to halt NEC's decision to administer mid-year KCSE exams, saying the decision by NEC was discriminatory against private candidates.
So we just want to welcome the decision. It will favor justice. Teachers were really worried about the kind of discrimination that the private candidates would have met.
Courts made its decision yesterday. In no way will it disadvantage our learners. The only thing is that we are denying the country and our learners an opportunity to be able to get a second chance.
Mary Mwoki, Citizen TV.
Right, and with that story, we are going to take a short break. But before we do so, the panelists are already here in studio. The Chief Executive Officer of the IEBC, Marjan Hussein Marjan. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
We have Crispin Oguye, Director of Legal Services at the same institution. Good evening.
Good evening.
And Moses Unkuli is the Director for Voter Registration and Electoral Operations. How are you doing?
Good evening, Sam.
Great. And we have so much to talk about. I told you that for 2 years, the institution they come from has had no commissioners or the board of management that would be guiding them on policy questions. We'll be understanding the state of that institution, but also what much work has to be done ahead of the 2027 election, which is not so far. It's just over 2 years, 7 months. Welcome back. You're still watching Tonight, and it's time for Data Point, which is a special focus on the status of IEBC. Let's start by looking at the timelines of the events that have happened over the past 2 years or so. In December 2022, you may recall that 3 commissioners resigned from the institution after cases were brought against them, petitions to remove them from office. In January 2023, 3 commissioners led by Wafula Chebukati retired from office after serving 6-year term. In February 2023, Commissioner Immaculate Masit was removed from office after successful processing of a petition against her. Then after that, something else happened. That is, in February 2023, President Ruto appointed an IEBC selection panel to reconstitute or to recruit a replacement of those 7 commissioners. But in April 2023, President Ruto agreed to calls for talks with Raila Odinga, including what eventually became the bipartisan process. And then Nelson Makanda panel had to halt its operations to pave way for the National Dialogue Committee deliberations. Let's take a look at the next item of what transpired around that time. So in November 2023, after months of deliberations at the Bomas of Kenya, the NADCO, that is National Dialogue Committee, made recommendations to changes to the law affecting IEBC. And in July 2024, more than a year later, President Ruto assented to the IEBC amendments in an IEBC amendment bill becoming an act. And the contests to IEBC panel were filed in court, bearing in mind that after this, there were names that were submitted by different nominating agencies, but that had to stall further, given the cases that were filed in court. But now in January 2025, which is this month, the courts cleared the path for the IEBC selection panel after that process was concluded. And on the 27th of January, which is Monday this week, President Ruto appointed a new selection panel, which was sworn in on the same day at the Supreme Court. And we understand that 2 more members of the panel will be sworn in come tomorrow. Now, beyond that, what else has happened is that there are several processes that have stalled due to the absence of commissioners at the institution. First of all, there are several constituency and ward by-elections that are pending for members of parliament. 3 constituencies and 1 nominated MP is also pending for the by-elections in the wards, at least 9. And we'll be hearing from the members of the commission on how far we've gone about that. Then boundaries delimitation should have been concluded by the start of March 2024. That has not happened. And of course, the country is now late because it has to be done within 8 and 12 years. The initial or the current boundaries were published on the 4th of March or thereabout of 2012, but now it's more than 12 years later, so there's a problem there. Voter registration was suspended just before the 2022 general election. We do not know if it had been restarted before the commissioners left office, but it has not been going on. And also there are several institutional reforms that have also stalled. Let's take a look at what you need to be aware of, especially as we head towards the general election of the year 2027. And first of all, if new boundaries are to be used, so remember already there's a problem because we are late. If new boundaries are to come to effect, they must be ready by August 2026, which is exactly 1 year to the election of 2027. So will they be ready? We don't have the commissioners. How soon can they come in? We'll be hearing the answers. And of course, that may be challenged on the question of constitutionality, bearing in mind that it's already outside the window of 12 years. And also, if new boundaries are adopted, there has to be fresh vote registration, knowing that boundaries may move, meaning the constituencies may not look the same, the wards may not look the same, so you need to register voters afresh. And that is what will be guiding our conversation this evening, which I want us to kickstart by speaking to the panelists